Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl. Come join me in the living room for some honest conversations. I'll be talking to guests about their journey with Christ through the joys, the challenges, and the messiness of leadership. There's always something to learn from someone's story, so let's get started. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl, and I have my friend and guest today, Dave Witt from Hamilton, Ontario. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Dwight. Good to be with you.
Yeah, Dave, you're with True City, and for those who don't know about True City and what it's all about, what is it that True City does there in Hamilton?
Yeah, we're a network of churches that have entered into partnership with each other. So congregations in the city that have entered into a relationship with each other to pursue what's good and best for our city. So that takes a number of different directions, whether that's welcoming refugees to our city or collaborating on some discipleship engagement or running a conference, which we do once a year. There's a number of ways we do that, but it's congregations that have come to love each other.
Oh, that's so awesome. And a geographic region, the Hamilton
Mhm.
area. How many denominations are involved in that?
Yeah, there's 5 different denominations among the churches that have formally partnered, and a few other denominations that are in the mix as well.
For informal involvement.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So there's lots of diversity of different churches that are involved.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the common denominator is our being in our city, and yeah, we've found that all recognizing the different ways that God's in the move in our city together has created bridges across some of the differences that our different traditions would have.
No, that's so awesome. Dave, today we were going to talk about rhythms of prayer, rest, and community that
Hmm.
sustain leaders because you're working with leaders across different denominations in the region there in Hamilton. And I'm just interested to probe what you're observing. And my first question is, what core rhythms of prayer and rest have you seen consistently help leaders stay spiritually and emotionally healthy?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the one that jumps to mind first is practices of Sabbath, uh, and just the commitment to taking a day a week. Obviously, for pastors, those that works a little different than it might for other leaders, depending. So for many, Sunday would be that day. For pastors, it might be a different day, but a commitment to having a day that we step away from our work, that we're dedicating that to being in communion with God and making space for God and some core relational interactions. That's been a practice that I've seen be very fruitful for leaders here.
Yeah, and that's not so easy to always do for a
No,
pastor
no,
because
not.
there's the Sabbath rest, but you also have the activities of your family and commitments there at that level,
Yeah.
and to have time to withdraw and be quiet can be challenging.
Yes, and how we work those out, in terms of because yeah, there's lots of other things you might do on a day off, but how you set aside a day specifically for yeah, being open to God is challenging, but fruitful when we find good rhythms for it.
Fruitful and rewarding and essential. It's usually those who don't take Sabbaths that end up burning out over time.
Yeah, unfortunately so.
Dave, how can leaders develop a prayer life that feels natural and unhurried and genuinely life giving?
Hmm. Yeah, I think kind of the dual thing of I mean, one key part to me is to have a varied diet when it comes to prayer, like to recognize that there's a number of different traditions in the prayer life, and usually our tradition, the denomination that we're from, will have a go-to kind of prayer rhythm, but that we can draw from other traditions in ways that keep things fresh for us. So in my Baptist tradition, intercessory prayer has been kind of the staple diet for what prayer looks like. Uh, but adding in, kind of breath prayers and centering prayer rhythms has been a really important complement. Some of the contemplative of practices have really been helpful for me. Um, Over time, what I found is it's really important to keep track of our roots and to lean into our roots as well. But having that varied uh, uh, involvement from different traditions has been crucial over time for keeping prayer fresh.
Now it's interesting. I've have explored, written prayer to include it from a contemplative perspective, and it has really been so very, very helpful.
Hmm.
As long as we pause to see how our heart squares and centers on what we're reading, it can take us very deep when we, embrace the truth that is there before us and express it before the Lord.
Yes, yes, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's been really I've seen in people's lives is just the fruit that comes from those varied perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. And, coming from Baptist roots myself, uh, growing up, that wasn't necessarily a common thing that we experienced.
No, yeah.
I love that. You can definitely learn from our brothers and sisters in other denominations. Rest can be difficult for driven leaders. How do healthy leaders create space for rest in a way that strengthens their leadership?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to mind for me is that I think scheduling those times of rest, like putting them in your calendar, is an important practice. That uh, you know, just making sure that you've set aside some of that time for those areas of rest, whether that's time with the Lord or time with family or just time apart. uh, having regular places in your schedule, and then recognizing sometimes life gets more hectic and we have to take those times. We might plow into those times a bit with our activity, but when we're doing if we find that we're losing those times regularly, it becomes a good indicator to us that maybe we're a little out of balance in the way that we're living life. And so just getting those times set in the calendar, I think, is a good practice.
Yeah, and for me personally, surrender is actually such an incredibly huge piece because I'm a get it done kind of person. And so it's, big on my agenda. And sometimes I literally, to get into that posture of rest, spiritual rest, I have to say, Father, I'm not called to success. I'm not called to failure. What I'm called to is obedience. And today I surrender this to you.
Hmm.
And it really sometimes becomes a very, very challenging thing to do. Like, I know there have been times when I wear two hats, one ministry, one business.
Hmm.
And I've got a lot of people who depend on me and from a business perspective because we have a lot of employees here
Yeah.
and a lot of moving parts. And sometimes I feel like I just have to do this, and have to do that. And of course you do sometimes, but I also have to recognize there's faith. And Lord, if I miss this particular opportunity, I'm going to believe you're going to bring the next one along. And that place of, really walking by faith, I think positions us in that place of rest too, along with surrender.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
so important.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that is a major challenge for leaders is to feel indispensable and to come to this place where it feels like if you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And so you have to be in and on all the time. And yeah, when we get into those places, I think that's dangerous territory for us. So having those ways of keeping aware of and humble before the Lord in those spaces is important.
Absolutely. Community support is essential for long term health. What does meaningful and healthy support look like for a leader?
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I think about when I think about this question, it's I think important to recognize the different communities that we're a part of and the types of support that we're looking for from those different communities and so just the need for say our church community to be aware of what we've committed ourselves to and to for there to be an openness and a willingness to have us involved in those different initiatives that we've taken up and for them to I feel like the healthiest kind of church community relationships are ones where there's people who are particularly concerned with the well-being of their leaders, and so are checking in with them to make sure that they're able to get to the different commitments that they've made, and but there's also communities like a pastors group or a leaders group that we're a part of, and so being in community with them and getting support from that community might look like having a regular way that we're checking in with them to recognize the ways that the commitments that we have are taking their toll on us and in need of prayer from that group in need of a place to have honest conversations in need of a place of encouragement when discouraged.
No, I like what you're saying there because honest conversations that where we can be transparent and we can risk, they sometimes are not always found within our church congregation. And
Mhm, mhm.
sometimes we need a place where we can come alongside other leaders who are facing similar things, where it is safe, and just unpack the journey and
Yes.
share.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly been our experience here in Hamilton. Like we would regularly get pastors together and the kinds of conversation that they can have, the understanding that they have of each other's situation, the ways they can pray for each other, is different than people within their congregation can pray for them, just because they have that shared experience of pastoral ministry we also have another group that's executive directors of some of the nonprofits, the Christian nonprofits in our city, and again, just recognizing that uh, the burden that they bear in that specific role, and then having them come together, they're able to share in a way that with understanding of each other, support each other in powerful ways.
Well, it's there's nothing like having someone who can identify with what you're
Mhm.
walking through, you
Mhm.
know. So it becomes a powerful experience. Um, can you share a story of a leader whose ongoing rhythms kept them centered through busy or challenging seasons?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I'm just thinking of my friend Ian, who um, was a middle school teacher, just retired about a year and a half ago from being a middle school teacher, and then took on the role leading a house of prayer in our city, and just that transition for him from a very structured schedule to a more free flowing schedule. Um, he had a practice of having a rule of life that just was a way of naming the specific spiritual practices in his life for the different parts of his life that would sustain his spiritual walk. And I think having that rule of life as he made that transition was really helpful. He had to recognize these new places, these new expectations, new demands that would come on him, and make adjustments. But because he already had something in place and an understanding of what gave him life spiritually, uh, he was better equipped then to make those adjustments as he stepped into this new part of his life and new demands that were on him.
Mm. Leaders wanting to grow in these rhythms, what simple and practical starting point would you recommend?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I think going back to that, I frame it in terms of Sabbath, though we might broaden it from there a little bit. My spiritual director talks about having making sure that we've worked into our lives regular times of reflection. So she would say like have an hour a day and a day a week and a week a year that you would be making time to be paying attention to what God's saying in your life. And so I think those kinds of rhythms of time to reflect are key starting points for people as they venture into new things, and as those new ventures would place different demands. You can anticipate some of what's going to come when you step into something new, but there's always going to be aspects of it that are beyond what you were expecting. And so having that place to 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 step aside from that and understand what God's saying, I think is really crucial.
Well, there may be leaders that are listening to us right now that are saying, these are great ideas. I like what you're saying, Dave. Um, how might they find those spiritual directors, mentors, fellowships, with other pastors? And how do they discern what's right and healthy and good? I mean, there's the element of casting pearl before swine.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not always safe. And pastors are I know, very conscious of the level, the importance of safety and sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do feel like that. those are the kinds of places where people like spiritual directors are important. And I'm not sure how it works there for you guys in Atlantic Canada. We have a couple of groups. There's a prayer ministry in our city that helps steward some of the resources around spiritual direction, and so people can find the names and contact info of potential spiritual directors on this Greater Ontario House of Prayer GoHop website, and there's a couple of other groups that would help build those connections. I don't. Would you guys have something similar there in Atlantic Canada?
Well, there's relational connections, definitely.
Hmm.
And there are some Canadian. In fact, I was just thinking, David, who's doing the recording for the podcast even today, could probably put down in the section below in the YouTube and so on links
Hmm.
to a number of different sites, because I think there are two or three, as you're mentioning, that are resources for spiritual direction, and you can hear a little bit about what each person offers and so on, and connect too with people in the city,
Hmm.
who have a director.
Yeah. Yeah. And coaching is another resource that I think has proven important, and whereas spiritual direction would be more focused on our specific walk with the Lord. I found that coaching is focused on wisdom in how we do the work that we're called to do. And so that's another resource that I know we've found to be helpful
Well,
for.
I'm glad you clarified the distinction between the two, because spiritual direction is dealing with the movements of the heart,
Hmm.
and the coaching is more dealing with the activity of the hands, the
Hmm.
actions of the hands in context of leadership and work. Where can we get coaching networks? They're quite plentiful, actually.
Yeah, I think there are a number of coaching networks. As you said, a lot of times in our context, it's been word of mouth and recommendations from different people. But yeah, I think those networks are out there.
Hmm. Dave, my personal passion working with leaders is the leaders in the small communities.
Mm,
When you come to Atlantic Canada, we have some very small communities that are tucked away out of the way. And one of the things that we started the network for in the very first place was to support them. And one of the most, a story that means so much to me, I went down and I met a pastor who is out on an island here in Nova Scotia, of which you have to go to by ferry. And he has a church there with just a handful of people. And he works in the fish factory, the fish processing plant,
right.
rather, during the week to make the income that he needs. And he pastors there in that community. And there are those that are in smaller communities all across our nation.
Yeah.
For those who are in those more isolated areas, what are some recommendations there?
Yeah, there's a group called the Small Church Network that is specifically set up to speak into some of those realities of pastors in and leaders in small church settings, recognizing that all too often the collective wisdom that comes out in books and resources is aimed at medium and larger churches. There's a need for specific insight on small churches, and just having a place where small churches can connect with each other. And so I know in our context that's been one of the benefits of having a network of churches like True City in our city, is that it's allowed smaller churches to interact with each other and with other churches and to benefit from some of the resources that are there in ways that they don't have the resources within their own congregation, but they can connect with others to do things like youth service days, or have a conference that they can be a part of, that's beneficial to them as a church.
No, that's so good. And we definitely live in a new day with online connection
Yes.
that is different than pre-pandemic days for sure. So those are some great suggestions, Dave. In the last minute that we have left, do you have anything you want to share with young leaders?
Yeah, I think the beauty of the intergenerational kinds of relationships, I think, is really important. The energy that young leaders bring, the renewed vision that they have, is so crucial to the life of the church. And my heart, my desire is that there would be good spaces where young leaders can connect to leaders who've been involved for a couple decades, that where they can hear, can benefit from the wisdom of what's there, and be able to bring that energy to bear in ways that fit with what God is up to, and some of the history of what's been going on in the place. And so that important interaction between generations, I think, is crucial.
Yeah, that's so good. Dave, thank you for being on the show today, the program.
Sure.
It's great to have you here. Dave Witt from True City in Hamilton, Ontario. And friends, we'll see you next time on The Healthy Christian Leader. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more information and resources, and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.